Hello, everybody. It's me, the Enlightened one on Hammer and the Truth. And today we got Craig the Gray and the Enlightened one. And this is the only podcast made by wrestling fans for wrestling fans about the paranormal. We are wrestling with the paranormal. Today we are talking about the Amity. I always say this wrong. The Amityville Horror.
Amityville Horror.
We're talking about the Amityville Horror.
The Amityville haunting. The haunting of the house in
The thing
Amityville.
about the the Amityville Horror is it's not really a haunting per se.
Okay, we could get into that. I mean, it's a very famous paranormal event that happened because there was a lot of media around it in 1976. So, because Amityville Horror was like the name of the book and then the movie, right? Yeah.
But it was more of a demonic sort of thing, right?
Well, I mean, there's different theories, isn't there? That's why we're here with different theories.
We're here to wrestle
with paranormal.
Yeah. This is like WrestleMania 3 of the paranormal.
This is a big topic. All right, where do we start? I guess we should start at the beginning.
Oh.
Okay, so before any of the Amityville became famous, well, I guess this did kind of make it famous, but there was a murder, 1974. Ronald DeFeo Jr. is convicted of killing 6 members of his family with a high-powered rifle at night. The murder, obviously becomes kind of famous because it's a big murder. And that definitely kind of is the background, right, to what's going to happen next. So, and then basically after that, there's a couple that moves into the house, George and Kathy Lutz.
Well, before we get into that, let's talk about a bit of the controversy around the murder.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first off, he supposedly shoots all 4, was it 4 or 5?
6.
6 of his
family?
family?
Yeah, we'll talk about it, but yeah, there's different theories about what could have happened, but
okay, but he's shooting.
He gets convicted of six.
Yeah,
members, yeah,
he shoots them, and it's a pretty much a shotgun, and it's not. If I hear a shotgun, I'm waking up and I'm running, right?
It's loud, yeah.
Yeah, like I could see maybe one person getting away, at the very least.
Yeah, the police said it was very confusing that he shot because they were all in different rooms. Well, they weren't all in different rooms, but they were in
their own bedrooms.
They're in their own bedrooms, yeah. And he shot somebody. You'd think the other people would wake up, get out of their beds, try to run away. But all of the bodies were in their beds.
And there was no drugs in their system, so it wasn't we drugged them and then killed them. So yeah. The other theory is that there was an accomplice, which they think is the sister,
mm-hmm.
and then she actually killed them all, while maybe he held them,
and then he kills her,
But even with 2 people, as soon as that shotgun goes off, there's still one person running away, right?
Yeah, even if he held down one person, yeah, it's very.
You need one person to hold down each person, pretty much.
Yeah, and the police say that a lot of it didn't make sense. They show because I watched a documentary on it, and one of the police investigators, said that when he showed up to the crime scene, he assumed the bodies had been moved because it didn't make sense to him that all of the bodies could be in their beds, in their bedrooms. So he assumed the bodies had been moved, but they didn't find any evidence that the bodies were moved.
And they were Italian, so they thought that maybe this, and even DeFazio claimed it was a mob hit. There was no ties at all for the family to.
There wasn't a lot of information on that.
Now, his dad was a bit of a abusive character.
Mm-hmm.
And led him to alcoholism, getting abused by his dad, it kind of the cycle was continuing with him, and he was quite a abusive and angry kid, and so it led all to the whole family getting killed.
Now, to bring a little bit of the paranormal in, there is a theory that spirits could have helped him, like spirits could have been holding them down. Also, it was mysterious,
That's a pretty good.
and there was also it was strange that none of the neighbors heard any gunshots.
Yeah, they just heard
Six gunshots. You'd think somebody would have heard that, right? Because maybe if you hear one, maybe it wakes you up, but you don't know what it was, so you go back to bed or whatever. But 6, right?
And
Like, come on, someone's.
The gun that was used, you can't have a silencer for it, I think.
No, it was a high-powered rifle, because also it so they showed a possible reenactment of what could have happened, although it'd still be kind of mysterious. Is the bedrooms are all around one kind of central hallway, so the shooter could be in the hallway shooting into each bedroom, right? So the gun has to shoot pretty far distance, right?
So then we have the Lutz family finding this home. They hear about the murder, but this is it's a 6-bedroom house in Amityville, and it's right on the river. This is an expensive house, and they're getting it for $80,000 in 70, 74, 76? But
the murder's in 74. They're buying the house in 75.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so they're getting a good deal. And so despite the murders and everything, they move in, and right away, the son tries to hang himself.
First day.
On the first day
of showing up, of moving in.
Like, if that's happening, I'm like, whoa. So.
And then they, I think on the first day, they get a priest to bless the house. That's also on the first day. Because I remember there was two events. Yeah, even right on the first day. Because the son tries to hang himself. They thought that was weird. So they get a priest to bless the house. And the priest is disturbed by one of the bedrooms and warns the couple. So the couple are George and Kathy Lutz, and he tells them, don't use this bedroom. He said he heard a voice, something told him to go away or told him to get out, right? And now there's multiple reports about the things that happen. So, like, we can talk about the things that people reported right away, like immediately, but then also things seem to get added with the book later. So in the book, apparently there's also there's flies and stuff everywhere, and slime in the rooms.
Yeah, they're saying they reported seeing slime. They reported there's flies. Now in the movie, the flies are attacking the person, but just the flies alone.
Yeah, the Hollywood movie, the 1979 movie, obviously takes a lot of license, right, with the reports.
And then with the 2007 with Ryan Reynolds, that takes even more license.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, we can talk about the movies later, but there's controversy around it all. But yeah, so they got the flies. The priest tells them not to use one of the rooms. The son tries to hang himself, and then the daughter, because I think they had 3 kids. Yeah, they were moving in with 3 kids. They had a daughter who said that she saw a pig outside her window with red eyes, and that the pig's name was Jody.
Yeah, the dad said he went in and went in the room, and the pig was there, and the daughter was wanting to go outside, and then all of a sudden the daughter was in the bed, and it was all like kind of a trippy dream or vision that he had. So her best friend was a pig named Jody, which is like a demon, sort of, I guess.
And I'm assuming it could talk if it told her name, its name, right? So yeah, some kind of spirit probably.
And what about the pictures of that little boy just coming out? That was creepy, right?
That was creepy.
Yeah, there was a picture taken of some surveillance or whatever, and there's this little boy that was just kind of poking his head around the corner, and it wasn't any of the kids that lived there, and so that That was a little bit creepy.
And then the daughter said, when they showed her the picture, the daughter said, "Oh, that's the boy I was playing with. I met that boy and I was playing with him." Right? So could have been a spirit. So,
Okay,
and
so
that was late. That
Okay, go
was
ahead.
later though. That picture was taken because after, okay, so they're there for they're only there for 28 days. And then
Yeah,
they flee. They take off, right?
they don't
They
take
can't live
any
there
of their
anymore.
stuff. They just leave.
Yeah.
And it said that they weren't planning on leaving forever, but they didn't end up being forever.
Well, they also wouldn't talk about what happened to them the last night that finally convinced them to flee the house.
Yeah.
They actually wouldn't talk about it. So either it's so terrifying they don't want to talk about it, or maybe it's traumatized them so much they don't even remember. Because sometimes if something really traumatic happens, you'll like repress the memory because it's
Yeah,
too traumatic.
so um, so right away. Oh, sorry, we're gonna get into. There's a room in the basement um, where it's painted red, and it's just a small little room, and it's enough for probably two people to fit in. Probably a bit of a larger closet, but it's not that big, and they were saying that there was some strange sort of essence coming from this room. And so George Lutz brings his dog down there, and he wouldn't go in that room. And just some weird stuff like there was drumming going on, and the parts of the place were moved around so people could dance, and it was just a lot of strange stuff going on in that house.
Yeah, there was another thing that George reported that he kept waking up at 3:15 a.m.
Yeah, 3:15, and that's when the murders occurred.
And that is when the murders happened a year before. So, and he would say that he would hear noises, right?
Yeah.
And he couldn't figure out what was going on. He also said
interesting thing.
Sorry, go ahead.
3 o'clock in the morning is the witching hour.
Oh, I see.
So if you wake up at 3 a.m., it's just creepy. If you look at your thing at 3 a.m., like that's not a good time to wake up. So,
but if you want to do some magic, you should stay up till 3 a.m.
No magic.
Well, and then the other thing that that George Lutz said is that the whole family just kept feeling like a sensation of fear, like they were just, and they didn't have this anxiety before they moved into the house. They were fine. Yeah. And then they kept having this like growing sense of just like fear. Now after they flee, they actually hire paranormal investigators to go to the house, which is where the picture of that kid comes from. So the picture of that kid, there's actually no kids in the house that night. That they just set up a tripod. Yeah, and they had a camera taking pictures every once in a while, and that's where that picture of that kid comes from. So there's actually no kid in that house that night that picture gets taken. And the paranormal investigators also sensed just like a feeling of like kind of a foreboding, like fear when in the house too.
Just take a break here. We're going to talk about our sponsors, Special R cereal, because 10% of it is rocks. Special R.
That is special.
And our other sponsor, water, tap water. What? You're too good for me? Tap water. Anyways, continue on.
Wow. So we get a lot of money from tap water as a sponsor?
Tap water is the untapped market of the sponsor world.
Oh, geez. Okay. So as you can see, we're clearly looking for sponsors if anybody's interested.
We're making up fake sponsors.
Okay, so where were we? Yeah, investigators. So the investigators go to the house, and they also brought reporters with them, I think, because the reporters were going to write a story. Now, the reporter didn't feel anything or see any of the activity. They just saw the investigators reacting to the activity. I was thinking about this, though. This is something that kind of brought up something in my mind, is that some people are more sensitive to paranormal activity than
Yeah,
other
for
people.
sure. For sure.
Because I've seen this happen. Like, I've been to multiple places where I work that have, occurrences, like they have things happen, right? And some people who work there, nothing ever happens to them and they don't believe it. And then some
Are
people who
you?
work there,
Would you consider yourself spiritually sensitive?
I've had things. I've heard sounds, had things happen to me. So
Get those
I think that
goosebumps on the back of your neck.
yeah, I feel like the presences. Sometimes I feel a presence of something. So I could tell you a story if we just want to get into like some true stories of
Sure,
haunted
go
places.
ahead. We'll take a little break to hear Craig's story.
This is a sideline to just like paranormal activity in general. Okay. So I used to work at an escape room, and the boss told me that the building was haunted, that he heard things. He had stories. He had stories that he was alone in the building doing work at night, like he was fixing something, and he heard footsteps on the roof, like banging, and there was obviously nobody there. Um, there was okay. Then something that happened to me when I was working there. So when you work in an escape room, you have to go in to give people hints. They're in a room, they're trying to solve puzzles, they're trying to escape. You go in to give them hints. I was in the room with two customers. They were playing the game, and we both heard somebody knock on the door. And we even looked, and I thought it was my other employee. I thought it was the other employee. I'm like, oh, I don't know why she's knocking. We clearly heard a knock. Even on the security cameras, you can see me and the customers' heads look to the door because we heard a knocking. I went out, and there was nobody there. I go to the other employee. She's at the desk. I'm like, why were you knocking on the door? She's like, I wasn't knocking on the door. We looked at the cameras, and there's a camera in the hallway, and you can see that there's nobody by the door, and you can see me, and it's live, like the two cameras are in
You can
sync.
see you reacting to the
You
knock.
can see reacting, and there's nobody at the door, but you can
That's
see us
awesome.
reacting because we heard
That's
the
cool
knock.
that you got that on video. You guys reacting with nothing on the other side.
It's pretty spooky. Yeah. But I heard lots of sounds and stuff in that place, just like, and it almost seemed like whatever it was, if it was spirits or whatever paranormal, what it was.
If I was a ghost and I was in a panic room, I would have so much fun. It's like the perfect place, right?
There was another time too where we used to have this door that had a bunch of chains on it, and when the players were playing, we'd go on the other side of the door and we'd shake the door, and all the chains would shake, and it would scare them, right? But there was one time, and we also have footage of this, where my boss is working alone, and it's late at night. It's like around midnight, and he's going in to help the players with something, and the door shakes on its own, and it scares him, and they all get scared, and all the players assumed that he had another employee, and they're like, "Oh, that's funny. You had someone else shake the door," and he's like, "There's nobody else here but me," and he got freaked out, and they didn't believe him, but he was like, "I'm the only one working right now." Like, yeah. But it seemed like we came up with a theory that the ghosts or the spirits, they were kind of copying the things that we did as employees. So it kind of seemed like they were trying to, work there, or they were trying to we
want to
fit in with us. Yeah.
We want to do something. We're bored. We've been dead for a few years here. Let's do something.
Well, and it's kind of like, because there's actually lots of reports of children playing with somebody, but there's nobody there. So I think a lot of kid spirits try to play with other kids, like they want to fit in, so they try to play with other kids, because that's what this Amityville
I
event,
don't know.
right?
I find those ones so creepy when it's the kid.
It is creepy.
But
that's like their daughter said, "Oh, I was playing with that kid," right? If the kid was a spirit, the kid still wants to play.
I always hear that the spirit wants them to do something dangerous. I always hear something creepy like that.
Well, you heard it here, kids. If you're listening right now to Wrestling with the Paranormal, if you're playing with a spirit kid and they ask you to do something dangerous, just say no.
Just say no, like Nancy Reagan said in the 80s. Say no.
Just say no to spirit
kids.
There's
no such thing as a friendly ghost.
Because you know what? They don't have parents. Because they don't have parents. The spirit kids.
Casper's parents still alive?
Wait, I guess if your parents die and you die, you do still have parents.
But does Casper look like a kid? So is his parents still alive?
I can't remember.
Anyways, so where were we with the Amityville?
Okay, so we were at the investigators. Okay, so after the investigators investigate house, there's a newspaper story that explodes, and then there's a media sensation that just grows and grows.
Oh, wait. So we're missing something here. Is the lawyer for what's his name? The guy who killed everyone.
Ronald DeFeo Jr.
Yeah, he wants to get involved with their ghost story here, and he wants to.
That's right. He did a press conference.
He wants to double dip.
He set up a press conference with the couple that left the house, with the Lutz family.
Yeah.
And he was kind of trying to make money off of the whole thing.
And the murderer was going to get a cut, like a small cut.
Well, I think they were writing a book about the murders. I think he was trying to work on a book about the murders.
Yeah, so.
Well, we can get into this later because there's theories that all of it's a giant hoax, and I don't know about that. But we'll get into that later. Spoiler alert. But there are, just theories.
That's why we're wrestling with it.
We're wrestling with it. Well, all we do here is theories. We don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, the media sensation starts growing. So people start hearing about this Amityville house, and people start actually coming to the town to like see the house, and like people want like get a piece of the house. They want to go into the house, right? And then that's when they start telling their story more. They start working on a book deal with a writer who comes in and interviews them and stuff. And then that just becomes like this famous story because it has so much in it, right? It's got a murder story. It's got a haunting, right? It's a haunted house. It's like a spooky house, right?
Well, if it was just a haunted house, I think that it wouldn't really matter. But it's a demon possessed house, which is even.
Oh, we should get into that because the murderer, Ronald DeFeo Jr., did claim that the devil told him to do it.
Yeah. So did possibly that room in the basement, could there have been some sort of satanic rituals or witchcraft of some sort, summoning spirits? And he seemed like he was a very angry kid as he was getting abused by his dad. And you can make all sorts of vows when you're an angry person at your dad, and so maybe
he claimed the night of the murder that a demon came up to him and handed him the rifle too, like gave him the rifle as well, and told him to do it.
Yeah, he kept on switching his story.
Well, he seemed a little bit unhinged, I mean, obviously.
Yeah, you're gonna kill your 60. He's a little unhinged, just a little.
I mean, I could see why, but then people with the sister theory, where it's like, oh, his sister actually did it. They say, well, no, it wasn't a demon that gave him the rifle. It was actually his sister that gave him.
She just wasn't very pretty,
and she just looked like a demon, And there's an incest theory.
Yes.
There's always an incest theory.
There's not.
This is before Game of Thrones. This is like.
Oh man, there's always an incest theory. Oh man.
Okay, where we got a little bit sidetracked. We went back to the murder. Oh, okay. There's another thing too. This is another theory. So they got I can't remember his name. I didn't write it down. There was a famous ghost chaser.
Yeah.
Who brings in a medium, a female medium, right?
Right.
And when she's in the house, yeah. So when she's in the house, she actually picks up, because the way a medium works, right? They pick up a spirit and then they'll speak for the spirit, or the spirit will speak through them.
Yeah, the spirit actually takes on, like, can actually change your form. Apparently, in this one, can change your form a bit. She developed an Adam's apple, and go ahead.
Yeah, so the spirit claimed to be a Native American chief, and then told the witnesses that were there that the house was actually built on Native American burial ground, and the spirits were angry. So then there's this whole other angle that, like, it could be these spirits that are angry because they were disrespected, and then it's these spirits that, could have then driven DeFeo to do the murder. Right.
See, this is kind of
it's getting all over the place.
Yeah, it's a little too much.
See what I mean, though? It's got a little bit of everything
with the Native American. It just doesn't fit.
it's kind of an all-star horror story. You know, it's got like every single
We got
angle.
ghosts, we got flies, we got
Yeah.
green goo, we got kids almost hanging themselves, we got the murders. You know, it does really have everything. And uh, it's coming when this book comes out and the movie comes out. It's hot on the tails of The Exorcist, which is like people who weren't even believing in God went to that movie, and all of a sudden they're going to the church the next day. It was just that big.
Yeah, The Exorcist came out in 1973 and was a huge success, like massive blockbuster.
And it paves the way for this Amityville. I can never say it right. Amityville Horrorville. It's just like
Yeah, The Exorcist is actually one of the first like massive blockbuster horror movies. Like that wasn't really that common. Their horror movies usually didn't do as well, right? But something about The Exorcist just struck a chord with people, right?
Well, because it was so raw and real too. It was, you know, not like the sequels, but the first one was just
Yeah. Well, the thing is it's not a monster. It's not like something from space, like an alien or some cheesy looking monster. Like if you look at like 60s science fiction and horror movies, like the monsters are guys in rubber suits, and it looks so ridiculous that like it's not really that scary because it's so out there that you don't think of it happening in your life.
well. The thing
But
about this is it can happen to you.
yeah,
Like it's plausible that you can get possessed. It's plausible that your house can get possessed. It's just like
I think the reason that these types of horror stories strike a chord and get so popular is that there is a lot of people out there that do experience these things, right? So then for them, it really resonates. Or you've had someone else who experienced something and they've told you about it, right? I think that's one of the reasons.
And everyone's woken up at 3:00 in the morning and looking their thing and like that's you know, it's very common.
It is, yeah. Now that does play into though. There's this like hoax theory too, that there are some people who think that the Lutz family faked everything. And they, because of the popularity of The Exorcist, which came out in 1973, they figured, hey, if we pretend that this house was haunted, then maybe we can write a book and make a movie, and maybe it'll be as popular as The Exorcist, and then we can make money.
Okay, so the problem with that theory for me is that that's a huge gamble of $80,000 buying that house.
Also, you're probably traumatizing your kids.
Yeah, like that's a huge. Well, obviously they're not paying the full 80. They're losing their deposit for sure. They're only there
How
for
deep does it
20
go too? Do they? Because here's the thing. So okay, let's
If you're
pretend
renting the house, it'd be a lot easier to pull off.
it's true. Now let's pretend. I'm just going with this theory. I'm wrestling with it. Okay, let's pretend that they were gonna fake it. The couple, George and Kathy Lutz, and they figure, okay, we'll tell this story. It's gonna be really difficult to get your children to lie,
Yeah.
right? Because it's hard to like get kids to lie and keep the lie going. So
Yeah,
do they
screwed up.
actually do they fake stuff and scare their own kids? Like, do they get a bunch of flies and they put them in the rooms, and then do they get like, does the dad dress up in a pig costume and scare the little girl? Like, how deep does that go? That's very disturbing.
Well, the pig thing, they said there was I don't know if I buy this one. There was a cat next door, a Persian cat that was overweight, whose name was Pig.
Wow.
And it would climb up the tree and look in the window. But the cat's eyes aren't red.
And it could talk.
Yeah, well, that's a children's imagination if you want to talk about that, right? Because the dad never heard it talk.
That's
The
true.
kid heard it talk, right?
That's true. I think that children, though, they're closer to the spirit realm, and I think children are more attuned to things so that they can. I also had a lot of imaginary friends when I was younger, and my mom claims that like it was almost spooky, like how much I'd be like talking to like friends, and you know, for her, she's like, okay, I'm just gonna say that they're his imaginary friends. But even now, to this day, she kind of tells me like she kind of thinks I was talking to ghosts.
What do you think?
Maybe I do remember just like I do remember, like, I don't remember seeing people really, but I remember there being like voices, and I just had like these friends, and like maybe it was my imagination. But this is when I'm like 3, 4, 5 years old. I remember like I just had like, yeah, there was just a whole bunch of, and I'd like run around with them in the yard and stuff. So I don't know. It's kind
Well,
of weird.
so it was something.
Yeah, could have been my imagination, I
I
suppose. It's
don't.
weird though when you get older, you think
Well,
about these things and you start to rationalize, and then you
okay,
kind of
well,
rationalize it away.
so are imaginary friends not fake? Is it possible that imaginary friends are spirit or demonic entities there to mess with the children's development?
Hey, what are you
Because,
saying about me? You trying to say I'm not fully developed?
well,
I'm
you are gray.
I am I am I am a professional paranormal podcaster, so maybe
Yeah, so
that's a hint. Yeah.
maybe you'd be a doctor if the spirit entities didn't talk to you.
So we're dismissing the hoax theory that the whole thing's a hoax.
I don't know. It's it's a tough one.
It's a far way to go. It's funny though, like you think though that other people would try this. I mean, I didn't do a lot of research, but like did other people try to do that? But you're right, it's a big gamble to buy a house and then claim it's haunted. You know, because here's the thing: you buy a house, claim it's haunted. How easy? It's going to be pretty hard to sell that house after,
Well, here's the
right?
thing. And they left all their belongings there.
Yeah,
Everything they owned and never went back for their belongings.
because
The
they ran
bank
out.
repossessed the house. So they didn't get anything back on that house. Anything they invested in that house, bye. And everything they owned in there, the bank's like, this is ours. We're going to auction this off because you screwed us over the money. But
I think they should have turned it into a paranormal museum.
and so let's get into this a little bit. So right after they left and other people bought the house, nothing happened ever again.
But you were telling me before there are things that have happened to people related to the story.
Right. So the guy who wrote the book ends up having a heart attack.
I'm gonna
And
look up his name so we can mention his name. I didn't write it down.
so he made a claim that I'm going to be a millionaire with a truck full of what are those fancy sweaters?
Cashmere.
Yeah, I'm gonna have a truck full of cashmere sweaters, and it's like such a strange thing to quote. I'm gonna have a truck full. Like, you only need one, buddy. You don't need a truck full of cashmere sweaters. Like, such a strange fantasy. I'm gonna be so rich. I'm gonna have a truck full of cashmere sweaters.
So Jay Anson is his name. The
Mhm.
book was written in 1977. When did he have a heart attack? Because yeah, I don't think it was much later, was it? He died in 1980, so 3 years later, he
Yeah,
dies
so
of a
he
heart
did
attack.
get rich. The family only got about $200,000 out of that.
Hmm.
So they didn't make a fortune. They made some money, but they didn't kill it, right?
Oh, this is interesting. I got just one more thing about Jay Anson. So the author wrote The Amityville Horror in 1977, right?
Yeah.
In 1980, the last book he wrote was called 666, and then he dies.
Or was it 999 upside down?
666, the number of the beast, sign of the beast.
See if
Oh
I
boy.
so
And then there was other things, wasn't there? Things
okay, so the
related to the.
manuscript he gave while he's writing the book, he wanted people to read the manuscript, and so he gave one to a friend, and her house burned down as she died. Yet the manuscript was unharmed in the fire, which is like what?
Spooky.
And then The other one, there was a car crash and he ended up in the water, and it was just in an envelope and it didn't get wet. Crazy.
Weird.
But yeah, it's definitely the most famous case that's ever happened. It sounds a lot like Demon House, like they're very similar.
And then multiple films get made out of it. And then this is years and years later, but so it's George and Kathy Lutz, that the family that had moved in, she dies later.
Right. Let's get into that. So back when they're in the house for those 28 days, she goes to the mirror and sees herself as an old lady, like decrepit old. Well, she's young. She was very attractive. And she sees herself in the mirror as a decrepit old lady. And the husband, I guess, saw it as well, and they're freaking out. And so she had a disease that aged her, like, she's older now, right? But it aged her like 30 extra years before she died.
Yeah,
so
she passes away in the early 2000s there. I think 2000.
So she must have looked like she was 100.
Yeah. And then he actually tried to sue the Ryan Reynolds movie that was like 2007 or something it came out.
Yeah, something like that.
Because of all the things they changed about the story, and he was trying to sue them. Thing about Hollywood, though, they get rights to things, and then it's like they don't really care about the true story as much anymore. They're just trying
that's why they say it's based on a true story.
Yeah.
So you could when you watch a movie that says based on a true story, they're going to take some licenses with it.
Even though Ryan Reynolds, if you're watching, we're waiting for your apology, video apology for being in the movie.
Tell you what, Ryan Reynolds. We are from your hometown of Van City. And if you come on our podcast, everything's forgiven.
Yeah. We can do it. We can do it live on air. You can apologize. We can talk about...
No. He doesn't need to apologize if he comes on.
Oh, okay, yeah. If you come on the show as a guest...
Everything's forgiven. Not a word spoken.
You don't need to apologize. Yeah. And we'll interview you, and we can talk about Amityville Horror movie, because that's, we're a paranormal podcast. And we'll also talk about the Green Lantern movie.
Because that's the most important thing.
Because that one's also really scary.
Yeah, it was really scary.
It's terrifying.
Yeah. I really liked that movie. I don't know why everyone's trashing on the Green Lantern. I don't know. I always wanted that movie to get made, and so I kind of overlooked a lot of the stuff that wasn't as good.
I don't remember. I saw it in the theaters. I don't even remember it. And everybody just makes fun of it. It's just like a thing now. You just make fun of it, right? But I don't really remember how bad it was. I do remember, though, that isn't the bad guy at the end just like a giant cloud flying through space?
Yeah, the bad guy was...
It's kind of weak.
The bad guy was the bad guy is so important in the movie. And if you
need a good bad guy.
Well, it was Sinestro, wasn't it? But he ended up...
No, there was that part of it, too. Yeah, like he was like an evil Green Lantern, right?
Yeah, but he went and formed this powerful energy. Like, anyways.
Well, we got sidetracked. Jeez.
Yeah, we're on the Green Lantern.
Okay, Amityville. We got anything else here? Yeah, I don't think it was a hoax either, because I think you're right. I mean, it seems like too much to do for a hoax. Even though, the family did get kind of famous, and they went on talk shows even.
What about this? What if it's an embellished haunting?
I could buy that, yeah.
So things happened, and they didn't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
But they just milked it. So they didn't come in with the plan to, make things up and do this, but they embellished so many things because, they wanted to make the money back from their house and all that kind of stuff because, it was scary. But they
might have gotten caught up in the media frenzy, just got caught up in it.
Yeah, another thing that they talked about was they saw hooves in the snow. Was another one of the things they talked about. But that's a strange.
I agree with you though. It does seem to be like too many things, Like there's just a lot of stuff going on that. Like,
So
because other hauntings will be like, it'll be like one ghost. It's like, oh, it's this lady that we keep seeing, you know, or it's like it's more kind of specific.
well, the medium. I think she did that on her own. I'm gonna call it out. Call the medium out right now.
Well,
that was fake. She did it on her own. This is my theory, and she took the big left turn there, and we're gonna add a Native American chief to this. So, and the family's like, "What? What do we have a chief in here for? What are you doing, lady?"
So if she was here, would you wrestle her?
For the championship, maybe.
Let's tie in some like wrestling. What was going on in 1976 in wrestling? What was going on?
Well, I don't know. I was pretty young, so
I wasn't even born.
So, but Andre the Giant was still huge, and
Andre the Giant was always huge, though.
Yes, he ate his Wheaties. He was a big boy. But
was Hulk Hogan around yet? Was Hulk Hogan around? It's 1976. Is he late 70s?
I don't think he's quite into wrestling yet. But
that's what was going on. People were so focused on ghost stories because there just wasn't enough entertaining wrestling yet, you know?
Well, wrestling, we'll talk about wrestling. Wrestling was it hadn't hit its stride yet, because in the 80s, that's when it just blew up.
Yeah.
It was popular, but it wasn't super popular.
It was like a hobby. Like some people watched wrestling. It was like a really sideline thing. Like
it was a
niche. Yeah, it was a niche. Yeah. Niche market.
And it was a smaller niche market. Every town had their own promotion, right? Especially the bigger towns. But when Vince McMahon made it national and somewhat international, that's when it got bigger, and he collected all the big stars from all the promotions. That's when it became mega.
Yeah, it was just kind of local before that. And like everybody had their own local wrestlers, and they might travel a little bit, but they didn't have like.
They lent the wrestlers to the other promotions. That way, when a character got stale in your town, you could trade him. You can trade him to the other town, and you're getting their stars. And like, oh, who's this guy? I haven't seen him before. So
pretty cool.
So what do we think on the can't say it. Amityville Horror? Do we think it's fake, in between, or real?
I agree with you. I think it was an embellished haunting. Like, I think things happened, but they added a bit to the story after, they probably got caught up in the media's frenzy and sensation. And then, and then obviously the movies like blow it out of proportion. Right. But I think definitely something happened though. Like a family wouldn't just run out of a house for no reason.
Interestingly enough, Snopes, they think it's false.
Wow.
But
the thing is though, the murder's real. Like, the murder happened. That's real. So like murder, evil spirits, things being disturbed. Like, I don't know. To me, it seems to go together. But
and even the murder's strange. So it has everything. This story, and it's not so cut and dry, which is why it's a great story to talk about in Wrestling Sports, because it's not so cut and dry. It was so
it's a weird one.
Dry where we'd be like, oh, this happened, and there's nothing to wrestle with. Then there's no point of talking about it, right? Because it's fun to debate whether it happened, and yeah.
Amityville Horror. And the documentary I watched was from 2005, and they ended it with the Eminem song, which I thought was really funny because Eminem wrote a song.
Wait, I don't think you watched the same documentary. I didn't have that in my...
You didn't see that? Maybe we didn't watch the same one.
No, I don't know. Had a British lady doing my...
Oh, no, there was no British lady.
Oh, wow, we're watching a different one.
I thought... Because you sent me a YouTube link, and I'm like, oh, yeah, the one I saw was on YouTube.
Yeah,
there's probably a bunch. There's probably a bunch.
Yeah. Well, it is the Amityville Horror. So, just to wrap this up, we got the Gimmick Boy T-shirt. Look how big that is. It's huge.
Awesome. I like it.
If you look Oh, you can't really see it, but one of the guys is me, the Enlightened one.
Nice. The
Yeah.
announcer?
Huh?
Is that like you're the announcer?
No, it's just right there in the corner.
Oh, I get it. That's like a
Yeah,
picture.
he's in this on the big screen. And you can reach us on Twitter at All Effin' Wrestling, and on Instagram at All Effin' Wrestling, and our other podcast. We are going to be talking about the tragic death of the wrestler known as China. Tomorrow, we're going to be talking about that. There was a recent documentary about China, and you know, it's so tragic because she just had a hard life growing up. Like she was really big,
Mm-hmm.
and she had a bit of a manly sort of face with the big manly chin, and she got made fun of and was called a freak kind of her whole life, and she didn't feel normal until she was a professional wrestler. And when that was all kind of taken away from her, her life kind of crumbled because it was her one time when she felt normal. And we're going to go into that tomorrow. And the show will be on Monday, but we're going to record tomorrow. And so follow us on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts. Just Another Effing Podcast. And right here on YouTube on Thursdays, we play the video of that. And I think that is. Oh, and buy a T-shirt. We have right behind me the effing bird T-shirt with flipping the bone fingers, and we got the Gimmick Boy T-shirt. This is also available in white. We're working on some new designs, so go to Pro Wrestling Tees at effing Wrestling right now from to the 5th. If you enter in if you're from Canada, US, you enter in code Canada or code USA based on where you are. You will get 20% off when you buy a shirt from Pro Wrestling Tees. So go buy a shirt. And what do you got to say, Craig?
And remember, keep on wrestling with the paranormal.